Hey everyone, welcome back to the Infatuasian podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be speaking with National Park Service's Ranger Connie Lau. And today we're going to talk about her journey as a ranger, as well as some national parks, as well as some contributions that Asian Americans made to the National Park Service. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It is January 23rd, and we are still reeling from the news of the mass shooting down in Monterey Park, California. Our hearts go out to the friends and family of those that were killed or injured by this terrible act. And there's just really no words to say that would make it better. But I do hope that you're able to celebrate with your friends and family this Lunar New Year. Perhaps that's one way that we can thwart what this guy was trying to do. So that's what I'm going to do these next couple weeks. I'm going to spend some time with family and friends, eat some good food, and celebrate the Year of the Rabbit. And I hope you do too. And I really hope that you're able to find a little comfort from this podcast. And I hope that you feel a little bit like part of the Infatuasian podcast family. And so from my family to yours, we wish you a very happy Year of the Rabbit. And as usual, thanks so much for listening. Back to the Infatuasian podcast. Happy New Year, everyone out there. Gong hei fa choi, xin nian kuai le. Today, we are speaking with National Park Service Ranger Connie Lau. Welcome to the show, Connie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And where are you currently working this season?
I am in the Grand Canyon, South Rim in Arizona.
Nice. How many folks are out there with you? You have a whole team?
Yeah, this is actually the park with the biggest staff in one concentrated place. So there's 3,000 people in the village.
Whoa, yeah. 3,000?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not just the National Park Service or the NPS. It's also Centerra, and then I think it's Delaware North, all the concessions as well. So
okay, it's a little city.
It is. We have a clinic, we have a grocery market, we have a gas station down in Tucson. So we have a whole school. We're the only park with a K through 12 school actually in the park.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah. So we're talking to a National Park Service ranger, and sometimes people ask me, how do I find guests and how do I meet them? With Connie, I saw a post on Facebook on Subtle Asian Traits, and she was posting some of her what would you call it? Memories or highlights or tips or I don't know. You posted a bunch of stuff on Subtle Asian Traits just saying, hey, I have a cool job. I'm in Yosemite. I'm on a ranger.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be cool to reach out to you. We like to talk about our guests' origin stories a little bit. What's your family background?
My parents are refugees from the Vietnam War. So they came here in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And I know my grandparents and my great-grandparents, except for my mom's mom, is from China. So Canton, southern China.
Okay, and then they moved to Vietnam, and then they moved back. They moved out of Vietnam in the war.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, how about you? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Pasadena, in California.
Okay.
And I was raised in Hong Kong for a little bit, and then in Southern California for most of my life. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're a kid, are you an outdoorsy person? Do you like going on hikes? Do you like animals and nature?
Yeah, we definitely like camping as kids. Not as much as you would think, I guess, with my experience right now. But yeah, I always loved the outdoors. I really got more into the outdoors when I was in college. I was a summer camp counselor for a while. But no, I always loved animals and the outdoors and just being outside for sure.
Yeah, fun fact. So you know how they have those little career quizzes when you're like in 5th grade? And you may hear this all the time, right? So I took the career quiz and mine came out park ranger. That was the one that came out from.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like the outdoors too. I remember when I was in fifth grade doing a overnight trip to Muir Woods because I grew up in San Francisco.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, it really was incredible. It was really cool. And, we just sit in the meadow or sit in a ring of redwood trees. And it just was cool. And then so when I filled out the survey, I was like, I can see myself doing that. But then you read the job description and it's like, well, you're alone a lot. A lot of park rangers spend a lot of time alone. Or, you have to deal with people who like to break the law. I was kind of like,
Yeah. I can talk about that a little bit for sure in our next segment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I read that we all have another thing in common, that we were both teachers at one point in our life.
Yeah. I taught for 7 years in Los Angeles. I was a 9th grade history teacher. And I taught ethnic studies. It was really cool. I love the job and I still want to go back eventually. We'll see. But yeah, I want to say I'm still a teacher now. I still teach about our parks to our visitors and to our students that are out here.
Absolutely. I saw a lot of that going on. We'll talk about that in a second. Mm-hmm. So you're teaching and, steady paycheck, summer's off. And then what happened? A light flickered in your eye and you're like, hey, you know what I should do is go to governmentjobs.com and find a job in the Park Service. What happened?
Yeah. So I knew I want to be a park ranger at some point. I said, I started going to the national parks or more outdoors when I was in college. And I went to a lot of ranger programs and I saw what they're doing. It was really cool, right? Just you're teaching and you're educating others and bringing awareness to these really beautiful places outside, right? And so I knew I wanted to be that one point. So it was always on the back of my mind. But yeah, the pandemic kind of sped up my burnout process. Teaching online is definitely not it. For a year and a half, and that just was really awful. The best thing about being a teacher, as I'm sure you know, is in our interacting with our students, right? Like face to face, and those small little interactions, like a joke here and there, or a fist bump, or whatever it is. Like there's ways that students make our lives as teachers so much more rewarding. But not having that for a year and a half definitely sped up the burnout process. But yeah, I decided to just go on a whim and apply to a whole bunch of different parks. And I remember in February last year, I told my admin, hey, just FYI, I'm applying to the MPS. And if I get into my top 5 parks, I'm just going to go for it. And yeah, and then a week later, Yosemite reached out with a interview request. And then a week after that, I had a job offer.
Oh, wow.
Yosemite was my top choice. So
yeah.
I guess I'm going to be a park ranger. So I actually had to leave my teaching job like 6 weeks early. I had to do a lot of different sub-plans and pretty much getting my team ready too.
So what is the process like when you want to apply to join the Park Service? How do you even find these jobs?
Yeah. So usajobs.gov will have pretty much all the jobs, right, that you're looking for. So you pretty much would just put search and then you put what kind of job you want to work for. So for example, for me, I would put park ranger interpretation. More about that later, but you put that in the search bar and then you can filter it for the different agency, in which case the National Park Service. And then a lot of stuff will happen. A lot of applications will pop up and then you get to decide which one you want to apply for.
And so each park does their own hiring. Like you said, Yosemite called you. So someone over there is in HR and they call you.
Yeah, it's actually like quite, I don't know what's the word for it. It's a really, really big operation. Like I don't even want to think about the process of HR. So it depends. Some of the really, really big parks like Grand Canyon, like Yosemite or Zion, or even Sequoia will have their own application. You apply separately to those. And then you also have regional applications that have pretty much all the parks in whatever region you're in. So for example, there's the Southwest one. So Southwest has Grand Canyon, Zion, Bryce, Saguaro, Oregon Pipe, all those things. And you have your West Coast. So you have, Yosemite and Joshua Tree and Muir Woods and all those different ones. Alaska have their own region as well. So it really depends. I think I submitted like at least 25 applications
Oh, okay.
in November of 2021. So you just kind of apply for everything and hope you get something.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Hey, before we get into the actual job, you mind taking a little national park quiz? As a teacher, you know we like to give quizzes.
Yeah, I will try my best.
All right, let's do it. All right. So, can you guess what, or do you know what the most massive single mountain on Earth located in a national park is?
Oh,
Now, you have to think. No, this is okay. Here's a little trick question. A lot of it is underwater.
is it one of our volcanoes then?
Yeah. Mauna Loa is if you added up the total volume of it, it would be taller than Everest.
Oh,
But part of it's underwater, so it's not as the peak is not as tall, but the actual volume is some 20,000 cubic miles
cool.
of mountain. All right, so that's on Hawaii on the national park. Is that the name of the national park, Mauna Loa?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very exciting time over there, I'm sure.
Yeah. Getting lots of activity out there.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Maybe not in its full glory, but I wouldn't mind going out there and seeing the little lava bubbling up here and there.
Oh, I wouldn't either.
That'd be cool, though. All right. This one. I'm pretty sure you know. What is the most visited national park in America?
Oh,
Not including recreation areas.
yeah. It's that it's like Smoky Mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it. Great Smoky Mountains, 14.1 million visitors a year.
I should give a fun fact about that real quick.
Sure.
They count anyone who goes on their parkway.
Oh, so all the cars.
Yeah, that's why it's so much compared to everyone else.
Mm.
Offense, Smoky Mountains, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
A little padded.
Don't hate the player, hate the game, right? All right, then number 2, Zion. Number 3, Yosemite. Number 3, Yellowstone.
Yeah, I think Grand Canyon and Yosemite are top 10 visitations. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure. And our very own, if you include national recreation areas, our very own San Francisco GGNRA, way up there.
Yeah.
Again, if you count all the cars, that's good.
So many people in Alcatraz Island, it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I can see Alcatraz from my classroom window. So I've always thought to myself, maybe I should work out there in the summer, do little tours and stuff.
Yeah, definitely look into volunteering. They're always looking for volunteers.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you guess? All right. Of all the years, can you guess which year had the most visitors to all national parks?
2016.
Yeah, you knew that?
It's our centennial of the NPS service, so national park.
Oh, so they really pumped it out. They really got people out.
Yeah. Which was kind of sad because so many people came there, and then 3 years later, pandemic hit, and then visitation because the parks were closed.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to get back to those numbers.
It's coming back up though, right? Have you noticed a bump? Yeah.
It has.
And I don't know if you think Instagram has had an effect on this too, because you see some amazing pictures, Zion, and
yeah, absolutely. It's for better or worse, right?
Right.
Definitely a lot of more visitation because of Instagram, but also a lot more just people not treating our parks right.
Getting off trail, yeah.
And just trying to get that one perfect picture, I'm on the Grand Canyon itself, I'm always oh my gosh, stay off the edge, because they're, getting really, really close for that really great picture. I'm always no, don't do it.
Yeah.
But no, I know for Zion definitely have had so much visitation because of, I want to say, social media for sure, just because, it's really, really beautiful place.
Yeah. It's there's always pros and cons to everything, but I'm sure some people have never heard of some of these places and they see it on Instagram and they say, hey, we got to go there. Yeah. Honestly, I had never really heard of Banff before up in Canada, but now it's it seems like every other person is going to Banff, know.
Walter actually went there, I don't know, a couple of years ago. Yeah.
It's so beautiful though. Yeah. And actually, I was just in Arizona over winter break, and we were in Phoenix, so we ended up going to Sedona.
Nice.
And Yeah, like you said though, you can watch YouTubes and like how to get to this secret arch, and it's off trail and it's a little sketchy. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there about parks that maybe there didn't used to be even 10 years ago. It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the job. So there are different titles for rangers. Some are permanent, and you are an interpretive ranger.
Yeah. So I am right now technically in Grand Canyon. I'm an education technician.
Okay.
I know it sounds so formal, and I'm just like, can we just be an educator? And then in Yosemite, I was in park ranger parentheses interpretive. So interpretive park ranger. And then for me, you can actually add the language part too. You can be like interpretive park ranger language. So my biggest mission or job or duty is really to educate people about the park. I like to say that interpretation is talking to the general public. So everyone from ages 1 to 100 plus, right? Education, we mostly just interact with K through 12, specifically our 4th and 5th graders. But pretty much the same idea of just, hey, we're here to educate people about the resource, and then so that they have this connection to it and that they can better protect and preserve it.
Yeah, so still a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do want to talk a little bit about the ranger, like the different titles and the different jobs too, because I think that's a misconception usually. So there are so many different types of rangers, so many different type of jobs within the National Park Service. So I'm just one very, very small like job, right, in that grander scheme of things. So for example, there's also law enforcement ranger, which most people usually think of when they think of ranger. So that's a law enforcement. They do all the law enforcement thingies. And then you have your maintenance. So they take care of like the bathrooms, all the trash. They make sure everything looks great. And then they're awesome. And we wouldn't be able to function without them. You have your fees rangers, who are the ones that are at the front, at the entrances, and they're collecting fees. And they're also helping with the campground and stuff and whatnot. And then you have your backcountry rangers, who are the ones patrolling the backcountry, making sure people are okay, making sure people are doing leave no trace and that they have permit and so forth. You have your trails rangers, who are making all the trails in the park and maintaining them. So for example, if it was a rock fall or a tree falling on the trail or whatever it is, they're the ones who hike out all the way in the backcountry and fix those trails. So there's just so many different types. And then, of course, on the technical side, you have like your biologists, your geologists, your archaeologists, all your ologies. You have your social media person, you call your visual information specialist. So there's just like so many different roles within the NPS, and people don't usually know about that. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just not one like person that can do all these different things.
So for you, what do you consider the best parts of your job?
I love interacting with the public in general. No, like definitely in Yosemite, it was definitely as a Cantonese person, like speaking to Cantonese people in Cantonese about the Cantonese history in Yosemite. Like that is just really, really awesome to see their eyes light up and they're just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like history here that's like about like me and my culture and my people. And it's just like, yeah, they built the roads here. And it's just really cool to see that excitement. And then especially talking to them in the language that the immigrants like talk in themselves. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool. We just talked to some folks over at Save Cantonese. They're an organization trying to save Cantonese language programs.
Oh, cool. I see the post.
Yeah. And we mentioned that basically Stanford, the person, built his fortune on Chinese labor, and Stanford University was literally built by Chinese labor. And so Chinese labor in California went all the way out to the Sierra Nevadas. And so can you talk a little bit more about Asian American contribution to Yosemite?
Yeah. I think the biggest one I want to talk about is the roads.
Yeah.
All the main roads in Yosemite were possible because of Chinese workers. So when Yosemite was first kind of, I'm going to use this in quotations, discovered, because they weren't discovered, there were people there living already by settlers and Westerners anyways. They really wanted to make it a place where people can go and visit and of course have hotels and all the touristy things possible. In order for that to happen, there needs to be roads. So most of the main roads, if not almost all of the roads in Yosemite, are made by Chinese American workers. So Wawona Road, which is the one from the south, so from Oakhurst and then all the way up to the valley, that one is created by Chinese folks. The one Big O Flat Road, which is going from the west also, and Tioga Road, which I think is the most impressive road. That is the highest road we have in Sierra Nevadas. This is around 8,000, 7,000 feet in elevation. And this is a 52, don't quote me on this, I'm sure it's 52 miles road in the Sierra Nevadas. And they made most of that road in I think fall and winter.
Wow.
So it's just kind of wild. And they made that it was 6 months.
Oh, wow.
6 months. Yeah. I don't think a continuous 6 months, but 6 months. And again, this wasn't when there was technology or anything. So they're doing, pickaxes and shovels and, maybe a little bit of blasting powder, but that was it. And they made those roads, and we wouldn't be able to access Yosemite in the way that we're able to today if it weren't for those workers. So that's definitely a big one. And the other one would be their cooks, and they're also working for the Wawona Hotel. So me, as a ranger of that district, that was really cool to talk about. So Wawona Hotel is our historic hotel of the districts, and most of the chefs there, the head chef there, Chef Ayu, and Alui were all Chinese. And yeah, just kind of cool that you have these really important people, including presidents and politicians and everything. And they'll go to Wawona and you're getting served by Chinese chefs, which is really cool. They're also helping with the laundry of that place. They're also the gardeners. And they had their own huge garden of all the different produce that we use in the hotel too. So
is this late 1800s, early 1900s? What years are we talking?
Yeah.
After the railroad or around the same time?
Hundreds, early 1900s.
Yeah. Okay.
And 1882, 1886, those are the other numbers I know.
Yeah. And all mostly dudes, not a lot of women. Yeah. So anyone out there who has roots, all you 5th generation Chinese Americans like myself, we have roots going back to the 1800s. Know that some of your relatives might have been working on Yosemite next time you're there. It's a really cool fact.
Yeah, so I want to shout out my fellow Ranger Yan Chan. Mm-hmm. She did research for this for the last decade and then some. So definitely props to her for bringing all this information out in the open. And yeah, she's incredible. Definitely look her up too. She has a lot of really cool interviews that she talk about all these things.
Yeah. I just heard an interview with her. She's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go into a segment. We haven't done this segment in a while, but it's called Asians Being Awesome, where we talk about awesome Asian Americans. And we're going to talk about Tai Sing. The spelling of it is sometimes T-I-E Sing, or sometimes it's T-Y Sing. But I didn't know that he was actually really Asian American. He was an American-born Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So he was born here. And what was his role?
Yeah, he was a chef that really contributed to the success of the Matter Party, which in turn established or helped lead to the establishment of the National Park Service. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's incredible. I think you have his book linked.
What's his name? Albright, one of the guys on that trip. And it's a really amazing account. Have you read part of that?
Yeah, I've seen quotes from that one. Yeah. And there is actually a book that you can read. It's called Mountain Chef.
Oh.
I'm completely blanking on the author's name right now. I'm sorry.
No, I'll post it in the notes. Don't worry.
Yeah, but children's book about Tai Sing. And yeah, he's pretty awesome. And so he was actually a backcountry service for the USGS, so U.S. Geological Services, for a while already before he was asked to be on the Matter Party. And those folks, the USGS, loved him. He was such an awesome. He can make biscuits and steak and venison and apple pie in the backcountry. And I'm not sure if you've been backcountry before or back, but it's really hard to have good food while you're out there. Yeah. But he made it work, and he was so incredible. They actually named a peak after him. I'm sorry sure you saw that. And there is a Sing Peak in Yosemite, and that was named because of his contributions and why and they loved him so much as one of the Cokes in the backcountry.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a really great quote about his contribution is like, it doesn't matter how beautiful, I'm paraphrasing right now, doesn't matter how beautiful your views are or how beautiful your sunsets are. If you're hungry and you're angry, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he like just some of the firsthand tales of him. He would make fresh sourdough every morning, and he would use like this starter from San Francisco. And he would. So it's cold. We're in like winter and fall, and he would get the dough to rise by putting it next to his mule. He would have the mule's body warmth rising the dough, and he would carry a portable stove with him and an oven so he can do this. And
on that trip itself, there were so many things that happened that like he had to kind of just be really flexible about. Like one of his donkeys that had like all the best foods that he was going to do all the gourmet stuff with, like fell off the mountain. Donkey was fine, by the way. But all the animals and supplies got lost. And then like, there's so many different things on that trail where he was like, had to pretty much like change it up a little bit, and he was still awesome.
But yeah, to get a mountain named after, or a peak named after you, back in the 1920s, as an Asian American, that was unheard of, right? There's nothing named, they weren't even invited to the railroad celebration, right? So
yeah, it's a pretty incredible life.
So they must have really liked him. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely check out Mountain Chef.
Okay, definitely will. I heard it's pretty hard to get to Sing Peak. It's kind of on the outskirts, right on the border.
Yeah, I haven't been myself. So Ranger Yan actually leads a pilgrimage there every year. That's working with the Chinese Historical Society of Southern California. Okay. And yeah, they do a backpacking trip out there every year. And I hope to go there on it this year. We'll see. But it's pretty awesome from what I hear. And it's just a lot of Asian Americans, of course, but also just supporters of Asian Americans. And they're folks who are interested in that history, and they'll go on this trip. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, it's really remote. So I think you definitely have to do some, what's the word for it? Going off trail and bushwhacking a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So not for everyone, but look it up if you're wanting to do the Tai Sing Peak pilgrimage. You think it's called something like that?
Yeah, it'll be the Sing Peak pilgrimage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. And then you wanted to mention Chira Obata as well. I don't know anything about him, so what do you know about him?
I'd love to talk about him. He is a Japanese-American artist who was actually friends with Ansel Adams. I think everyone always knows Ansel Adams, but they didn't know friends. Chira Obata. Obata was a watercolor, mostly known for his watercolor paintings. And he did mostly paintings of the high country, so Tuolumne Meadows area. And they're just really bright, vivid colors that he does, and just adding his Japanese background in ink Zasumi painting with the landscape, right? So that was just like a really fresh way of looking at the Sierras, because at that time most of the paintings and depictions of nature is very like, oil painting, classic, old school, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like kind of type of realism. So just I hope you get to see some of his paintings. They're just really evoking, and there's a lot of motion that he conveys with them, and it's just really beautiful. And we actually have an Obata art weekend. So we also have a weekend that we use to celebrate him and his work. This is in August that we're going to have for this one. And it's just really cool just to celebrate another Asian American in the park. I also want to mention his wife, Haruko Obata, who was one of the first instructors of Ikebana in, I want to say, the United States, definitely in San Francisco. And Ikebana is the art of floral arrangement. Mm-hmm. And so she also really cool things with that. And she also had exhibits in Yosemite Valley. So it's kind of cool because the pair, Haruko, will have her flower arrangements of Ikebana, and then around Obata's work. So it's pretty awesome. Obata and Haruko were actually interned as well. They're Japanese. So and the fun thing, not the fun, but the very terrible thing is that like Obata was Trua Obata was actually a professor at Berkeley. He was a art professor. And, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was interned. And just to see his work before and after internment, or even during internment, it's like, oof.
Yeah.
And he also still led and taught art classes while he was interned. One of my favorite drawings of him is actually of a sequoia. Sequoias are really important to me because I talk about them a lot, and he just has one of them and just talking about how sequoias are an inspiration to him. And the drawing is like mostly just sepia, and it's just brown and black, and it's just this sequoia just weathering this huge windstorm. And he reflects on how, when he's thinking about how life has been like really terrible and really hard, he looks to these trees, right, who has been here for thousands and thousands of years, and think, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. And just to keep going. So yeah, definitely look up his paintings, and look up Haruko Obata. Like, unfortunately, her work you can't see her work because they're flowers, but Obata will actually draw her work and have like different things. So I think they're pretty cool powerhouse. So their granddaughter actually comes to the Obata Art Weekend and talk about them as well. So
nice.
It's pretty cool.
And what week was that again? Typically somewhere around
in August. I actually have the date. I believe it's August 27th this year.
All right. So yeah, definitely it's not all good and happy memories from these Asian Americans in the park, but their legacies are there. There's a highway named after Obata, which is very cool, and a peak named after Singh. So there's little memories here and there, some of them good, some of them bad, but the history is there. And so definitely get out to your national parks. Switching gears a little bit, speaking of Asian Americans, have you noticed an increase in Asian American visitors to the parks? I don't know, just looking at Instagram, it seems like a lot of millennials are getting out to the parks.
Yeah, I can't say what the actual statistics say, but I want to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially in Southern California and in California itself.
Yeah.
I would say. I am not sure about the rest of the country per se.
Right.
But no, we actually have a lot of international visitors to parks. So, and a lot of them are from Asian countries, which is kind of really awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, very cool. All right, let's just talk a little bit about you and ask you some questions. Do you have a favorite park?
Favorite park? Yeah, so Yosemite would definitely be one. Yosemite is definitely on my list because of the history it has, because I remember visiting it as a child, and it's also my first park that I got to work at. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely holds a special place in my heart right now, for sure. I want to give a shout out to the Redwoods National Park, or Muir Woods even, but Redwoods National Park, it's also gorgeous. And I think I just really like big trees. Sequoias are awesome, and also the Redwoods as well.
Yeah. How about a bucket list park? You have a couple. I'm sure you have several, but what's one on the top of the bucket list?
Oh, it's gonna be probably Gate of the Arctic.
Oh,
have you heard of that?
No.
It's in Alaska.
Way up there.
It's literally in the middle of nowhere. You can only get to it by plane.
Oh, okay.
You have to actually fly into Fairbanks first, and then from there, which is already a small plane, and then take another small plane. There is absolutely no infrastructure there that I know of anyways. So it's literally just wilderness. It's a very, very ambitious bucket listing. I don't know whenever I ever get to do it, because you really need a lot of good skills in order to be out there, literally with no infrastructure. So
can't wing it.
You have to be, you have to be very self-sufficient, right? Of course, you're in Alaska, so you're thinking about really, really, really big grizzly bears.
Yeah,
definitely. I think most of the Alaska parks are definitely on my bucket list. I've been to Alaska, but didn't really get to explore the parks. But I think Katmai would be really cool too. That's the one with all the bears. Mm-hmm. If you off the Fat Bear Week, it's great. You get to go on your favorite fat bears, and it's awesome because they're just pretty much gaining weight, right?
Gorging themselves.
Yeah, and it is awesome because Katmai actually has a what's it called? Like a little deck that you stand on, and you just watch all these grizzlies, just giant bears, just eating on salmon. And you just see the fish, they're going up the river, and then you just see these bears just completely gorgeous. It's I really love to now.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that you went to Manzanar. Would you recommend making that trip? It's kind of sad, but it's important, yeah?
Yeah, I really appreciate Manzanar. Yeah, it's definitely a very, what's the word for it? It makes you definitely reflect on our country.
Mm-hmm.
And how, yeah, it's like we shouldn't be surprised sometimes, right, by what they've done. Like even now, like with the anti-Asian stuff happening during COVID, and people were like, why? This has never happened before. I'm like, no, it has. It has.
Yeah.
It's part of our history, and it's important to acknowledge that history. No, Manzanar, and they've been adding more exhibits. There is an exhibit there that's pretty much like their bathroom, or how do you pronounce the word, latrines?
Latrine, yeah.
And it's just pretty much like, hey, this is the latrines for all the women, and then you can just see that there's just no space, right? And then you can be in one of the bunkhouses, and you're just like, yeah, I just can't imagine just being told one day, like, hey, pack whatever you can in your one suitcase and go for it. I mean, and that's what happened to Obata and his family.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone from bankers to professors to farmers, just had to leave everything. Shops, you might have had a thriving retail business and you just had to leave it. So not a shining star in American history, but something that we shouldn't forget, we shouldn't gloss over.
Definitely old for sure.
Yeah. I'll throw a few local ones out there from California. So we have the Locke Historical District, which is a funky little place, and it's going through some changes. But it was kind of like when people kind of got out of San Francisco and got out of the railroads and the gold mines. They kind of all congregated in this one little town called Locke, and it was kind of like a Chinese town in the middle of the foothills. So it's kind of a funky little place.
I just heard about that like this week.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, but check that out. It's by Sacramento, right? Like an hour or something.
Yeah. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere in a way. But so there's still some folks that live there, some Chinese American, like, fourth, fifth generation Chinese Americans who live there. And so not a ton to see, but definitely some history there. And then some California state parks. Angel Island, of course, inside of San Francisco Bay, has I don't want to say brand new, but pretty new visitor center that they remodeled. And you can see a lot of the history there. If you don't know, Angel Island was kind of like the Ellis Island of the West. And so most of the Chinese immigrants for the first 100 years or so came through there. And then China Camp in San Rafael, they did shrimp fishing. It's a shrimp fishing village that the Chinese set up there on the San Francisco Bay to dry some shrimp and send it back home. So there's a lot more than I'm mentioning here, but if you're interested in Chinese or Asian American history, there's definitely a lot in California. All right. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're getting pounded by rain right now, which is kind of a bummer, but I'm imagining that the spring waterfalls are going to be amazing this year.
Oh, it's going to be incredible.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite waterfall in Yosemite?
Probably the one in my district, Chunuana Falls. It is a hike to get up there 4 miles. So 8 miles round trip. But once you get up there and you go a little bit further up to the second set of falls, it is really, really beautiful.
Is that one of those really tall ones, or kind of
not really.
It's just the look of it.
Yeah, it's the look of it. It's secluded. You can actually swim the little lake there.
Oh.
Yeah, and I really love it there. I think I've probably been to more lakes and waterfalls in Yosemite.
Mm-hmm. But it's going to be epic this year. There's so much snow up there.
Upper and lower Yosemite Falls are going to be incredible.
Raging, yeah. If you can get there, it's going to be crowded, I would imagine.
Yeah. My favorite spot in Yosemite will probably be the Mariposa Grove. Again, I'm working the district, but yeah, if you're ever in Yosemite and you find yourself in Wawona and you go to the Mariposa Grove, most people just only walk the first like mile or two, maybe to the Grizzly Giant. But then if you go into the Upper Grove, where Wawona Point is. First of all, there's no one around there. And two, it's just surrounded by sequoias and they're pretty.
So sometimes just go that extra mile or two and you'll lose the crowd a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Good advice. I was just wondering, are there any special perks of working for the Department of the Interior that you don't have to give the secret one, but is there something, can you get out of parking tickets or what do you get by working for the DOI?
Yeah. Man, we don't get that many perks. I think the biggest one is living in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can just walk outside. I'm a 20-minute walk from the rim. I'm a 5-minute drive, and it's so cool that you can do that.
Yeah.
I definitely one of the coolest part of it for sure. Yeah, I think another perk is just like representing like, hey, you're here to protect the parks. That sounds very corny, but
yeah. And I think volunteers, you can, if you do a certain amount of hours, you can get a park pass for life, stuff like that.
I'm not sure about park pass for life. That would be great.
Or maybe it's like a discounted park pass for life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you get so many appreciation from the staff. We won't really exist without volunteers.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a favorite book, movie, podcast, blog, YouTube channel related to national parks? Is there something that you've read that really inspired you?
Yeah, I was just listening to this podcast the other day that was pretty cool about parks, and it's called Mesa Verde Voices. The one that's about the Mesa Verde National Park, and it's pretty much about the ancestral Pueblo people of that region. And I just listened to it the other day because I'm a star dork, and there was an episode about stars, but from the perspective of the Dene or the Navajo people. So it was just really cool hearing. I forgot who the person, what tribe they were from. I think they were from what nation they were from. I think they were Hopi. But just hearing different people talk about their star stories, so that was really cool.
Okay,
and that's Mesa Verde Voices.
Very cool.
One. There was another one. I think look up any podcast by Shelton Johnson. Shelton Johnson is a African American ranger, and he's doing most of his work and education about the Buffalo Soldiers. So these were soldiers who were they're Black, and they were some of the first park rangers in all our national parks. So I think definitely look up podcasts that he has been in. He's usually a guest, and that's been really cool too.
All right. And we like to end each episode by asking our guests to name an infatuation. An infatuation is anyone in the Asian community, living or deceased, that has inspired you. Could be someone you know or someone you admire from afar. Connie Lau, do you have an infatuation?
Oh, yeah, it's got to go with my mom.
Okay.
Yeah, like just coming here, as a teenager and, being a refugee and having to get used to this whole new country and a new language. And between her, my grandma too. My grandma came here with like my grandpa had already passed. And so it's just her coming with like all of my uncles. We have not lose count of how many I have, but all my uncles and aunts, and just being here by herself and still figuring that out. And I don't know. It's just like there's this thing about Asian parents just having this like quiet strength to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're not the ones to like brag about or talk about what they have endured and all that stuff. It's just kind of like, yep, this is what happened. This is what I'm doing, and I don't need to talk about it. But yeah, that was part of my life, and they're just so incredible like that.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily an uncommon story, but it doesn't mean that it was easy. It's a lot of people went through it, but it was hard.
Yeah, I do a program about the Chinese contribution to Yosemite, and one of the things I do always is just talk about how hard English is as a language. And I think we always take for granted that our immigrants come here and they learn this language that's actually pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And even that thing, something that's as simple as that, or we think as simple as that, is not that simple.
Yeah, yeah. There's a funny, I don't know if you've ever watched YouTube where there's like a guy and he might be like a white guy living in Hong Kong or a white guy living somewhere and he speaks a little Mandarin, right? And everyone's like, oh, wow, you speak Mandarin so well. Or I can't believe you speak Chinese. But then someone was saying, you know who else can do that? Is all my Chinese grandmas and all the Chinese aunties. You know, they learn language too, but somehow it's more exciting when someone who's Caucasian goes to China and speaks a little Mandarin versus a Chinese immigrant speaking a little English, you know?
Yeah, no, that's definitely across the board for all of our immigrants. And it's just like so frustrating when I'm like, okay, cool. Like, how many of us are bilingual or trilingual?
Yeah.
And like, it's all right. That's expected of you, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that does it for our episode with Ranger Connie. Thanks so much for coming on with us.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's super fun. I learned a lot. So, do you have any social media that we should mention here? I know there's at National Park Service Instagram.
Yeah, I do have one that's kind of my like park ranger / teacher one. That's the classroom.outdoors. So my name is Connie Lau, so classroom. Get it? Classroom, classroom.
Got it. We'll put that on the show notes. Everyone can follow that. If you want to go to the National Park Service website, you'll see lots of good things over there. And there's the America the Beautiful Pass is only $80. So
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal. So everyone go over there, check out different deals. If you're a senior citizen, it's even cheaper.
Oh, yeah. If you're a veteran, also.
Veteran, yeah. All right. So everyone take a look at those, find out more about your national parks. You can follow us at The Infatuasian Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Or, of course, you can email us at infatuasianpodcast@gmail.com. So, Connie, thanks again for coming along. And best of luck. Are you going back to Yosemite? That's the plan?
I am. I actually just got the offer last week.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, everyone out there, if you're in Yosemite this summer or starting April, is that when you start?
Mid-April, yep.
All right. So if you're going to Yosemite this spring or summer or early fall, look for a ranger where you're around Mariposa Meadows, or where are you going to be walking around?
Yeah, Wawona District. So yeah, the southern district of Yosemite. So Mariposa Grove and the Yosemite History Center in the Wawona area.
Okay. So if you see a Chinese American ranger out there, say, are you Ranger Connie from the Infatuasian Podcast? All right. So everyone go visit your national parks. And, on the way there, you can listen to a podcast or two. So thank you all so much for listening to us. And on behalf of Connie, myself, we hope that you're all happy, healthy, and safe out there. Gong hei fa choi. And we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.